Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all, and a very, very, very warm welcome to the first ever episode of As-Sahwa's podcast. This is your host, Uthman Abu Mike. Yes, that's correct. Abu Mike, not M-I-K-E, but M-I-C. Get it? Little bit of a joke, i.e. the microphone. Abu Mike is a name that you're not going to forget in a very long time. It's very, very exciting time for me. I've been pondering for quite a while now if I should really start a podcast. There are so many podcasts out there. There's so much substance out there. So why would one want to listen to another podcast? It's true, hundreds, if not thousands of podcasts and so much content on so many platforms as well. It's so strange that we live in a day and age where there's so much information available to everyone around the world, thanks to www. Everyone has a different taste. Everybody wants to listen to different things at different times in different ways. So hey, I want to bring discussion to a new level. I want there to be utmost interaction between friends and foes. Let them bring their arguments or their debates to the table and let everybody be involved in it and discuss it, engage in it, let everyone see what opinions we hold. However, for the moment, you're stuck with me. It won't be long before more guests and more guests will be entering the shows. And I promise you, it is a promise, it will be thought-provoking, very engaging, and will definitely blow your socks off. What I'm hoping to achieve is to create dialogue without fear of repercussions, without fear from being labeled, which is not exactly very hard, here, especially here in the UK. Generally, people need to have a voice, and people must be given the right to be heard, not just to speak, but they must be given a right to be heard. Doesn't matter how much one agrees or disagrees with them. And this is what separates the intellectual to the one who doesn't actually use their mind. And I don't mean intellectual in the terms of just being a professor or having BSc, MA, or a doctorate. Intellectual in the sense that people are actually using their mind correctly, wisely. They are accepting information, not just jumping on the information straight away and making a decision about it, but rather they're taking it in and they are trying to grapple with it and understand what exactly is this information that is coming to them. Now, for many years, I've been listening to so many podcasts, and there is so much information in my mind that I really want to get out there. And like I said, because there's so much content out in the world today, we all want to discuss things, and that's what makes us human beings. That's the difference between us and animals. Human beings we are social beings. That's the beauty of us as human beings. We are social beings. We want to be together. We want to discuss. We want to talk to other people. We want to hear other opinions. Maybe we don't want to hear other opinions. Some of us want to change. Some of us want to stay in the same state that we have been in, and we don't want to move on. We just don't want to change some of our thoughts and ideas and concepts, but we want to be stuck in that same way of doing things all the time. You know, back in the days when you used to have the record player and the record used to get some dust on it, used to get stuck, and it keep on repeating, or the tape recorder. I mean, how many of you people actually remember a tape recorder or VHS video recorders? But even that itself sometimes used to get stuck, and you had to stop the tape recorder, take the tape out, the cassette and the tape, used to be all wound up, and you just take it out really delicately and put it back together. And that's exactly what I mean. We are in that loop, and sometimes we don't want to get out of that loop. Sometimes we don't want to think in the other person's shoes. We just want to be rigid and think the only way is black and white, and that's it, and it's straight ahead. There's no left hand, there's no right, there's no up, there's no down. It's just straight all the way. And what happens with that is your vision becomes very, very narrow, extremely small. And you don't look around, you're only looking in front. When there is so much going on your left, on your right, above you and below you, but your vision is stuck to one way and you're not looking around. And that's what us human beings we do. We look around, we understand our reality, we understand the situation we live in, but we need to also understand the situation in other people's lives and how they are living as well. So, brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, we want to discuss so many topics, and we don't want to limit ourselves to religion or society. We want to speak about so much. We want to talk about politics, national and international politics, history, which is a vital subject for the masses, for the public to understand. Financial topics, come on, let's be honest. We all are going through some sort of financial difficulty. Relationships, wow. Subhanallah, look at the societies that we are living in. I'm talking about not just the West, the East and the West. Relationships are always breaking. We hear of so much divorce. We hear of so much dispute amongst families and family members and siblings and parents and uncles and aunties, and some don't even talk to each other for months and years and years. So we do need to speak about relationship. Society is another topic that we will be touching upon. We will be discussing how society in the East may be different, how society in the West may be very different. But within those societies, we see there are many aspects that need to be spoken about and exposed, really and truly. Current affairs is something else that we will be definitely be touching upon. And mental health. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I've seen many statistics, many medical reports speaking about an epidemic of mental health and how it's affecting men, women, children, mothers, fathers, everyone. So that's definitely what we will be discussing as well. And I'm hoping as well we will do maybe some film reviews, some book reviews as well. I mean, if anybody likes to read books anymore, and I'm talking about paper. Anybody want to pick up a book and read it in their hand, not just on the tablet, and not just on the Kindle, not just on your phone, but does anyone pick up a book anymore and read? And I would love to discuss some of these books that I have read recently. So let's kick off with a subject, with a topic which we really want to, how do I say, divide, dissect, because it's not a topic that we can just do in one episode. It's going to take quite a few episodes to understand what exactly is it that is going on and affecting. Why is it affecting the world right now? So we've heard about it on the news. I mean, wow, social media has just been smashed to pieces. I've never been on Twitter so much in my life as I have been for the last 2 months. Unbelievable. Instagram's gone crazy. Facebook is just, I thought it was just done and dusted. No more Facebook, but people are out there discussing so much on Facebook. And YouTube is unbelievable. There's so much content and information on YouTube. It's just crazy, And LinkedIn, wow, subhanallah, LinkedIn is really for academics or people in work, mainly to do with employment stuff and qualifications. But wow, for the last 2 months, LinkedIn has become so political. It is absolutely unbelievable. It is mind blowing, really. And we will talk about those things. And wow, WhatsApp, Telegram, Signal, God knows how many phone apps there are out there. And it's a world that's become so small in this age of technology, the age of live news, instant messaging. You could be on one side of the world, and within a couple of minutes, you're getting a video, photo. You're getting a text message or a WhatsApp message. Between two continents within more or less within a couple of minutes. But you know what comes with all of this? Is some serious misinformation or disinformation, but come on, it means the same thing. And what you will see is somebody will put up a photo, an image, and everybody will look at it in a very, very different way. And when you stand back and you're looking at this image yourself and you read other people's comments, you think, wow, I don't see what you're seeing. Or how can you not see what I am seeing? And this is the beauty of mankind, the amazement of man, woman, human being, where you're looking at the same information, the same image, the same video, yet everybody has a different interpretation. So what's the first discussion on the first episode going to be? Come on. Everyone's talking about it. It's all online. People at work are talking about it. People on the street are talking about it. Come on, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, take a guess. You want to phone a friend? 50-50? Oh, yes. We are going to speak about the topic of Palestine, Israel. And how can we not make that the first episode of the podcast? We have to mention this. We have to speak about it. But the way we're going to speak about it is we are going to try to give as much as justice as we can to this topic. Now people are going to say, actually, Uthman, Abu Mike, you are most probably an Arab. I'm not an Arab. But you sound like you got a Muslim name. Indeed, I am a Muslim, whatever you want to call me. I am a Muslim. And that is the reason why I am going to try my best, trying to be balanced as possible. The information that I'm bringing to you right now is from across the board. It is not just from Muslim authors, Arab authors. I'm talking about from Jewish authors, Jewish papers, Jewish websites. And because realistically, to understand the situation that's been going on in Palestine, in Israel, whatever you want to call it, no problem. Whatever you want to call this area, this region, then we need to really start from a very long time ago. Because the people are speaking about October the 7th, 2023. That's wrong. You need to go a little bit back, maybe 1967. Let's go further back. 1948. But I suggest, and I am, and I will speak about this situation, but BC, or as it's known today, as BCE. BC back in my school days when we used to study history was before Christ. And then you had AD, which is in the year of your Lord, or in the year of our Lord. And I think in Latin it's Anno Domini. But now it's changed to CE, means common era. So it's more of a secular term. So when we say BCE, And it's a bit obvious because it says means before common era, and then you've got common era. We're talking about, if you can kind of put it in your mind in terms of a timeline, it is before Christ. And why is it important for us to start? Because you have two groups of people who say Palestine has been there for over 1,000, nearly 2,000 years. There's always been a Palestine. There's always been Jerusalem during these times. And Muslims, Christians, and Jews have found Jerusalem a holy site. For Muslims, it's called Al-Quds, Masjid al-Aqsa, the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And we will speak about this in another episode to explain why it's so close to the Muslim heart. But then again, you have another group of people who say, no, there never was a Palestine, and it only belonged to the Jews, and Jews were the only ones that had been living there for years, and it is their exclusive right for the Jews to be living there. So let's explore this. And come on, guys, let's try our best to be balanced as possible, because this is a discussion. And discussion is for people to talk to each other. And that's why I need you guys to focus with me. As I say, lend me your ear. And please, I am not afraid of any kind of correction or feedback, and I'll say it again and again and again. It's important for me to be corrected if I am wrong. So let's start. We have Roman general Pompey. He conquered Jerusalem and its surroundings by 63 BCE, which hence was the disposal of the Hasmonean dynasty of Judea. So 63 years before Christ was born, you had a reign of Jewish dynasties. And we will talk about this, or talk about these dynasties, because there wasn't only one, and we need to give credit where it's due. There was many Jewish dynasties. But just hold on for 1 minute. I want to make something explicitly clear. Apparently, there is some information saying the Romans were the one who gave a certain area in this region that was called the Philistine, or the people of Philistine, or the Philistines. So you kind of see there is a resemblance to the name here. Philistine, Palestine. Okay, just remember that. Just remember that. In fact, you need to go further back and have a look around 12th century BCE, where there was an arrival from the Aegean islands, from the Aegean Sea, which is present-day Greece. And they actually came along at the same sort of time as the Israelites. So you had this area, and they were a warring faction. They were known as a warring tribe, a warring people. So they conquered around 5 cities: Gaza or Gaza, Ascalon or Ashkelon, Ashdod, Gath, and Ekron. Listen, I don't know how to pronounce it properly. I'm doing my best. Later on, the whole region would be named Philistine. So, just to let everyone know, there was a land that was called Philistine. There are some arguments that are going around saying there is no per in the Arabic language, which is correct. And how can you get Palestine if the majority of Palestinians are Arab? How can you get the term Palestine? Well, in Arabic, it's not pronounced Palestine. It's pronounced with a letter in the Arabic language, which is called Fa, which is Philistine. That's why Arabs can't pronounce Pepsi properly. They say Bebzi, right? Anything with a P, like even Pakistan, they can't say. They'll say Bagistan, right? They probably can't even say Poland. Probably say Boland. Okay, so you're absolutely correct. There is no P or P in Arabic language. In Arabic, the term Palestine is actually Philistine. You can kind of make the same sort of argument about there never was a country or land specifically called Israel, which we are going to explore, and that is kind of debatable, but I am talking about within the last 100, 200 years with this concept of borders and an army. There has never been a country that has been called Israel, or maybe there was, and we are going to talk about it. But going back to the term Palestine, it has been Arabized, if you want to call it that, and from Palestine it become Philistine. Another point that I want you guys to just remember, and it's worth mentioning about languages. You heard the term anti-Semitic. Who does the term Semitic represent? And the best way I think you should look at it is language-wise. So what are the Semitic languages? Hebrew, Aramaic, Amharic, and Arabic. These are Semitic languages. So somebody who hates or shows or displays hate upon a Jew will be known as anti-Semitic. What about if you are hating an Arab? That too should be anti-Semitic. No? Correct me if I'm wrong. But these are very ancient languages. And I'm not going to discuss what's, younger or older or what have you, but one of those languages which is quite old is Aramaic. Okay, now these Semitic languages are spoken present day by around 330 million people around Arabia, North Africa, some parts of West Africa, some parts of East Africa, some areas maybe around Iran, Iraq, Turkey. Okay, now apparently the only native Aramaic speaking population are Jews of which country? Which I never knew they were Jews. In Kurdistan. Okay, but Aramaic is a dying language. Now, I just want you to understand this because as we're going along, not just in this episode, in many episodes to come, you're going to see some resemblance in language, maybe in tradition, maybe even in religion amongst these people. So you understand the situation of this region called Palestine and Israel better, and will be easier to digest of what's going on and why it's been such a tension between certain people. So, I hope I haven't taken you away from the topic, but let's get back to the topic of the Romans when they came around 66, 63 BCE. Now, there were many, wars between Jews and the Romans between 66 to 135 BCE. The revolts were crushed by the Roman generals, okay? But what you did see in 70 BCE was the siege of Jerusalem. And here, the Romans plundered and destroyed many Jewish temples. And what is written in the various history articles, websites, suggests that the Jews were either, majority of them were wiped out, many were captured, kept as slaves, sold as slaves, and many of them fled the region. Now, this is before Christ. Okay, so obviously there's still a Jewish population, but not as much as they were. Now, it's hard to determine what that number was because they didn't really have a consensus around that time. But anyway, there was a proportion, and many Jews they fled from the area. Okay, and what you're going to see later on is large Jewish populations in different parts of the world. Later on, we see the Romans, Hadrian, change the name of the province of Judea to Syria and Palestine, and Jerusalem to Aelia Capitolina in order to erase Jewish history. Hence, the Jewish diaspora. Now, what you will see is by this time, the Jewish community, the Jewish people, were no longer in a united area. They were not in a united people, in a sense, right? Now, I want to kind of just fast forward. Okay, and the reason for this is because this is an absolutely humongous topic. It's not a topic that can be done in just a few episodes. It won't be right because I wouldn't be able to give enough justice to it. I am just trying to get to the bottom of this understanding. There never was a Palestine, there never was an Israel, and this whole tension and this madness that is going on and that has erupted around the whole world. Demonstrations, protests, and marches for Palestine, and significantly for Palestine. There have been, again, let's be fair, there have been many marches, many protests in support of, I wouldn't say directly Israel, but there have been marches against anti Semitism, and absolutely, we totally agree with that. Who wouldn't agree with that? But let's be honest about dates, about mentioning centuries and years when it comes to the issue of the name, the region, Palestine, Israel, etc. So we've mentioned now, right, that up until the Romans had taken the area, okay, and it was under the Romans for many, many years, there was no more Jewish rule. There was no more dynasty that the Jews had. There was hardly a Jewish community, in a sense, right? As they were scattered. Okay? Now let's just quickly fast forward to, now we're talking about CE, remember? The Common Era now. From 638, the Muslim ruler, Sayyidina Umar, radiallahu anhu, Umar al-Khattab, or known as Umar al-Faruq, he conquered Jerusalem, and the area, okay, for the Muslims that is known as Al-Quds or Palestine is not just present-day Palestine, and I mean the whole of Palestine. I mean Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, all this was known as Palestine. What is Palestine today, okay? So the Muslims, they ruled from 630 to 1099, okay? Common Era we're talking about, right? The Crusaders came. There was a Christian rule from 1099 to 1260. So please, guys, concentrate on these numbers. Just remember, from 638 to 1099, there was Islamic rule. Christian rule was from 1099 to 1260. No Jewish rule. The Mamluks, who were Muslim rulers, took Jerusalem and other parts and areas from the Christian rule in 1260 to 1517. Now we're talking about the 15th century now, right? Again, the Muslim rulers, the Ottoman rulers, took Jerusalem and its surrounding areas and other parts of the world under the Ottoman Muslim rule from the year 1517 to the year 1917. Hence, again, just to emphasize, from 638 to 1917, there was no Jewish rulers, right? There was, in fact, let's be honest, there was no Israel between 638 to 1917. Let's pause here for a moment. I know there's a lot to take in, but there are bits and pieces of information you guys really, really need to grasp and understand. Guys, please, I want you to Google, research, do your own research. Please, everything I'm saying, correct me. Honestly, I have no problem. You want to debate the dates, I have no problem. We can do that. But there was an era that was known as the Jewish Golden Age. And many might not have heard about this or read about it. That's why education is so important, especially in these matters. In the year 711 till 1031, there was a Muslim rule in Europe, in Western Europe. Guys, you'll be shocked, yes. From 711 to 1031, there was Muslim rule in and around the southern part of Spain, around the area of Andalusia. During that time, there was an era called the Jewish Golden Age. Jews were allowed to live under Muslim rule, and they excelled in their religion, in commerce, in their freedom. They were allowed to practice their religion. They were allowed to live amongst the Muslims in peace, and they did so as well. So just, guys, remember that, please, right? And on top of that, during the Ottoman era, the Spanish Inquisition forced Muslims and Jews out of Spain, and many of them went to North Africa, to Morocco. In fact, let me tell you, in 2020, I went to Morocco, the northern part of Morocco, and there was an area called the Blue City. The whole city was painted in blue. They have this kind of thing where they believe if you paint it in blue, it keeps the mosquitoes away and what have you. But anyway, the point being is when I went there, I was, quite pleasantly surprised. It's a beautiful area. And we had a guide. He was showing us the history of the area, and he mentioned to us each of the doors represented different cultures and religion. So he said, "Look at this, and the doors were massive. They were really large. I mean, you're talking many centuries old doors here." So he said, "Look at this door. This was known as the Berber door. Okay, so the indigenous people of North Africa are Berbers." He said, "This is the Arab door. This is the Andalusian door. And this one is the Jewish door." So I was like, "What do you mean?" He said that when the Spanish Inquisition occurred, many Muslims that were living in Spain came across with Jews, with Christians, and with Arabs and Andalusians who were actually Spanish, but they came along as well. And to show their identity and keep their identity, they actually made doors that were from their background. So again, the Jews were given protection, asylum, and safety and freedom in Muslim areas. During the Ottoman time, many Jews also went to Istanbul, which was the capital of the Ottoman Muslim rule. And there's many synagogues there. You can go there now and you'll see some synagogues there. The Jews have always been protecting around the area. And again, it was, they say you can find some Turks now, but their heritage is actually Spanish Jews. So just to put that as a marker and a note for you guys out there, just to see how Jews lived in Muslim areas with safety. Now, let's just look at the population, right? There is one thing just to mention. Ottoman rule was from 1517 to 1917, which we mentioned. The British Mandate from 1917 to 1947, right? So, again, remember this date. What was the Jewish population of Palestine? It is disputed. Many of the various websites and research papers, they do say different numbers. So I'm going to throw some numbers at you, right? Apparently, the Jewish population of Palestine between 1840 to 1880 rose from 9,000 to 23,000. Another statistic suggested that under Ottoman rule, the numbers were a little bit different. So they suggest that between 1881 and 1910, the numbers rose from 30,000 to 40,000. Now, guys, let's just put some numbers here now, yeah? Under the British rule, which was 1917 onwards, between around 1924 to 1929, there was 82,000 Jews that came from Poland to Palestine. Between 1929 to 1939, there was 250,000 Jews from Germany. Now, under the British consensus, it suggests that 1922 onwards, the figures were in excess of 85,000 onwards. Okay? Now, why am I mentioning these numbers and these populations? We already established that when the Romans took over and the destruction that fell upon the Jews in the region forced them out of the area, some stayed, some were slaves, some were sold as slaves, and the others fled. We've already proven the amount of Jews or Jews that were living under Muslim rule in Spain, under Muslim rule in what is present day Turkey, under the Ottoman rule. And now we are speaking of thousands and thousands of Jews coming from Europe. So that shows that when the Jews fled, they fled not in tens and hundreds, but they fled in thousands. Hence the reason why you will find numbers such as 250,000 Jews coming from Germany. What about the thousands of Jews that were in Russia, in Hungary, in Romania, right? And massive population in Poland, okay, in other parts of the world, okay, in France, a small community in Britain as well, North Africa, in Arab countries as well, Jewish population. You found Jewish populations in what is present day India and Pakistan as well, believe it or not, in Afghanistan, subhanallah. In Afghanistan, I believe there's still one synagogue that you found Afghan speaking Jews. Apparently there's only one or two left now in Afghanistan, and the synagogue remained, by the way, throughout the wars and the so-called destruction that Taliban caused, but the synagogue was untouched. Anyhow, just put that in your mind. The numbers of Jews that were coming to Palestine during the latter part of the 18th century, up until even now, right, is a massive population. So these Jews were not living in the area of what is called Israel today, but I mean Palestine. Okay. Now, let's just quickly mention the various dynasties, the Jewish dynasties, okay? And we're going to just go back again, just to remind you guys, right? And there's a reason for this. During 1047 to 930, that's BCE, there was a kingdom that was known as the United Monarchy, but it was called the Kingdom of Israel. From 930 to 720 BCE, you had another monarchy or an area that was known as the Samaria. Again, it was called Kingdom of Israel. From 1930 to 587 or 586 BCE, you had the Kingdom of Judah. And then you had from 140-ish to 37 BCE, the Hasmonean dynasty. You had another dynasty from 47 to 100 CE, Herodian dynasty. Then from 66 to 68 CE, you had the Judean provisional government. 132 to 135 CE, you had Bar Kokhba Jewish state. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. So you had these dynasties, there's no doubt about it. And majority were before Christ. Now, when you look at the Gregorian calendar, this is the Gregorian calendar, if it's saying before Christ, we are in the year 2023, which is since Christ. So 2,000 years since Christ. So are we saying now, from the information, from the research that I've done, there wasn't a Jewish state for around or just under 2,000 years. There was no Israel called, the area called Israel today, for around 2,000 years. If that's correct, please correct me if I'm wrong. But there was a Philistine, and there was a Palestine, and there was a Philistine right up until 1947, from the year 600 and, let's just make sure we're saying it right, 638. From the year 638 up until 1947, there was an area that was called Palestine, Philistine, in whatever way you want to call it. So we can establish that majority of the Jews that are living there today in Palestine, Israel, came to Palestine seeking safety and asylum, were not indigenously from the region of Palestine, or if you want to call it the region of Israel, but were from Europe. The majority were from Europe. So that's the argument that I am putting out there. I may have got some years wrong, but the thing that is absolutely clear, that under 2,000 years, under 1900 years, there was no area called Israel. There was no Jewish state. Even if you don't want to call it Israel, there was no Jewish rule. The rule was from 638 onwards. Majority was the Muslim rule, but there was Christian rule as well. But majority was Muslim rule. And if you want to go even further back, there were a people that were called the people Philistines, and the area was known as Philistine. I know that some Jews may put the issue, they don't like the Philistines, historically speaking, because apparently Goliath, who fought David, was from the Philistines. I don't know. I mean, what connection has that got to do with the area being called or named as Israel or as Palestine? I don't know. But anyhow, the point being is that there has not been a Jewish rule for around 1900 years, nearly 2,000 years in that region, up until 1948 onwards. Now, we are going to leave it there. The next episode is going to be, enjoyable, I hope, right? The next episode, we are going to be moving on a little bit further now to talk about the establishment of the state of Israel and how it got there. But just before that, there is an important thing to mention, to discuss, to understand. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as this is my first podcast, I would be so grateful for your feedback, for your suggestions, for your corrections. And if you want to join me in a debate, you're more than welcome to. Until next time, let's talk, let's discuss, and let's engage. Keep safe. See you soon. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.